On this podcast, we talk often about life, loss, and what truly matters. And part of that is taking care of the life we've been given. Did you know that cardiovascular disease and stroke are two of the leading causes of death in the U.S.? Yet 80% of these can actually be prevented. That's why I've partnered with Lifeline Screening. They offer a package of 4 quick, painless screenings for just $159. It's one appointment at one of over 14,000 locations across the country. No needles, no hospital gowns, no hassle. Just simple tests that can bring peace of mind or provide early detection. Lifeline Screening has already screened more than 10 million people, so don't wait. A simple screening can change the rest of your life. Click the link in my show description to schedule your appointment today. And now for today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Grief Observed podcast. My name is Brad Morrell. I'm your host. And if you would like to join me for an episode, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Grief Observed podcast, or send me an email at griefobservedpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find me on TikTok under the same name, Grief Observed Podcast. My guest today is Natalie Lobartolo, and she is here to speak about the loss of a boyfriend from about 9 years ago. So I will step out of the way and bring Natalie on, and she can tell you a little bit more about herself and her story. Natalie, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Brad.
Yeah. I have to first tell folks that how you found me and at least a little bit like you heard someone else's story on the podcast and said, "Wow, that story sounds somewhat familiar to me personally, and I feel like my story is worthy of sharing." So I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I'm glad that you found the podcast, no matter how you found it. And I'm glad we finally connected. It's taken us a little bit of time to get you on the air, but here we are, and I'm anxious to hear more about your story. So anyway, I'll step out of the way and you can tell everybody a little bit more about Natalie.
Sure. Yeah, I was really happy to find this podcast because I didn't think that I wanted to dive so deep back into these kind of things, but I was, looking around for different ways of processing and healing and thinking about things and just fighting this and realizing that I wasn't alone in it and there were other people out there and wonderful people like yourself doing work to get the stories out as
Mm,
well was really really comforting. So thank you.
yeah.
And yeah, so well, a little about myself. I grew up in Australia and I have been hard to catch because my adventurous little heart has taken me around many places in the world. I've lived in a few different countries at different times in my life, and I've always been a lover of language and culture and nature, the environment. So growing up, I just loved making mud pies in the backyard, and as soon as I discovered the ocean, I fell in love with everything marine and coastal, and that through my studies, I did some marine science and spent a lot of time in the mountains and in the ocean, but the ocean just kind of kept calling me back, a bit like Moana. Always the line where the sky meets the sea is always calling me, and I'm always going to chase the horizon and whatever the next adventure might be. And one of those adventures led me to Tahiti, where I did my professional diving levels to become a diving instructor. And yeah, found myself there in 2016, 2017. So yeah, nearly 10 years ago now, 9 years, 8, 9 years. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
where I met my partner.
yeah, I have to say, diving instructor, it sounds exciting, but I have I don't know. It's like when I go underwater, I feel a little bit claustrophobic, but I've also never dove in the water. I did some snorkeling in Turks and Caicos once, and it was quite wavy. And, to have been in the Navy, I'm not a real strong swimmer. So it's but there is something I love about the ocean, and everybody on this podcast and definitely everybody in my life know that I love to cruise. I love being out on the ocean. There's just something I don't know, quite mysterious about the ocean, and but there's something calming and something peaceful about it too. I really love the waters. Now, unlike you, I am a mountain guy. I love the mountains where I'm at, and this is always home. So I like to visit the ocean. I have lived at the ocean a couple of times in my life, uh, and then it just felt weird when I vacationed to the mountains. I felt like I was doing things in reverse. So, but anyway, I do admire you, and I think it's awesome. I share the love of the ocean with you, but just in a little bit different way. So, tell me how your story evolved. So you're doing diving instructing, and then travel, and you ended up landing where?
So I landed in Tahiti in French Polynesia, which for those who don't know is in the smack bang in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So if you think of where the States are and where Australia or the Asian continents are on a map, you would just go straight in the middle. Hawaii is also there in the middle, just north of uh, of French Polynesia. So it's about a 5 hour flight directly south from Hawaii to French Polynesia, right there in
Okay.
the middle of the Pacific. Yeah.
Wow.
So I found myself there, which, I mean, for a tiny little piece of land, life is just lived around the ocean, and it's such a huge part of the life and culture there. And yeah, it was a wonderful place to go as an ocean lover and to get into diving as well. It's like an ecological utopia there. There's just
Mm.
so much life and really beautiful way of living created around the ocean as well.
So what's the weather like there? I've never been.
It's very tropical. So
Okay.
it's very warm. It's one of those places where in summer you're sweating before you even get out of the shower.
Yeah.
And then in winter it's a little nicer. You might need,
Little
a
jacket
little
or
sweat
something.
jacket or
Yeah.
something in the
Okay.
mornings. And then in the middle of the day it might drop down. If the sun's out and there's not too much wind, it's beautiful and you can just be in a singlet or a t-shirt and don't need many warm clothes there.
Yeah.
It's a barefoot kind of life.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I may have dreamt this, but were you supposed to go to Tahiti, or was it kind of by accident that you ended up there? Remind me.
Well, it was a little bit accidental because, well, I was originally in Spain. I'm gonna tell the whole story. So when I was finishing my studies, I really wanted to go and study and do a semester overseas, and I wanted to study in French, just to lift my level of French up to that kind of, yeah, more academic and professional level. So I studied the last semester of my degree in French part of Switzerland, which there is no ocean. It is landlocked, but I was also studying geography. So I did all of my French subjects and all of my land-based subjects there and finished my degree. And then I was looking for a job and I found something in Spain. So I moved to Spain and I was working in the Mediterranean Cooperation Center. So back to ocean focus on the southern coast of Spain. And every 6 months, there was an intern that came and did a little period. And so I started with an internship and then became permanent. And one of these interns that came was a girl called Alice, and she stayed for 6 months. And we became very close very quickly. We're still very, very, very good friends. she left after her 6 months to go to Tahiti, and she was sending me photos and videos of her swimming with tiger sharks, humpback whales, all sorts of like, fish and coral and
Wow.
incredible marine life. And it didn't take me long to quit my job and go and join her. I knew that I wanted to do more marine focused work, and although this job was did have a certain oceanic side to it. It was land and sea, and it was mostly administrative. So I was doing a lot of project management, and I was at the computer a lot more. And I knew that I just wanted to be on the water with people more. I'm a people person, and I love being really active and hands-on. So yeah, diving's just so perfect for that. And so she was working in a dive center and organized the internship for me there. And I went and started my dive master and did that. And then once I finished there, I got a job in a different dive center. And maybe 6 months later, ended up doing my instructor course. And that's where I met my partner.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell me more. Tell me more about meeting your partner.
So I was actually working mostly in the reception at the time in this new job. I was doing a lot
Hmm.
of sales and reservations, and every now and then I would help out with some guiding. But I was mostly at the desk, and Gable arrived one day. He was a new employee, a skipper, boat driver, and yeah, arrived outside and was there for his interview, and yeah, caught my eye immediately. And yeah, when he started working there, things just evolved really, really naturally. I think we were both just very, yeah, see what happens. I wasn't really necessarily looking for something. And I think he was just this real cruisy surfer guy. Like, yeah, go with the flow. Let's see what happens. And I think if it went for our colleague, Hine, another girl that worked with us, she kind of started playing Cupid and matchmaker and talking to him and be like, "Oh, do you like her?" And talking to me, "Oh, do you like him?" And she ended up like establishing that yes, that we both liked each other, and eventually sorted us out on a first date. And I think we were both, yeah, not necessarily that shy, but I think we both maybe felt like we really, really liked each other. And so it kind of put this a little bit of like risk in there, like, oh, we're not really sure. And then when she established that we were both very interested, then it was easy from there. And yeah, I think with we both had this kind of laissez-faire, like just see what happens attitude. And she
Yeah.
gave us a nice little push. They organized our first date, which was a surf lesson. And yeah, I have some really fond memories of that.
Nice. How did you do surfing?
How?
Yeah. Are you pro?
Oh, now 10 years on, yes, I've put a lot of time and dedication into my surfing, and I certainly wouldn't call myself a pro. I like to refer to myself as an advanced beginner, because the ocean is forever humbling, and as soon as you think that you've got a decent level, it will dump you and remind you very quickly, just bring you back down to earth. It's a good sport to start with, leaving your ego on the beach and just trying to enjoy. Um, because yeah, the ocean just has this power,
Hmm.
real power. That's like you said, it can be really calming, it can be therapeutic, but it can also be quite threatening and intimidating and powerful. And I have a lot of respect for the ocean, and surfing has really built that respect over the years as well, in like understanding what water can do. It's
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
blowing.
That is a really, really smart thing to say and good thing to state as far as having respect for the ocean. And I think I have a lot more respect because the ocean is it is beautiful. It is calming. I've got some video when we were out on the ocean. I don't remember where we were. It may have been um it wasn't near Panama. I can't remember, but it was the calmest I have ever seen the open waters in my life. I'm just like, this is almost scary. I mean, it looks like you could go ice skating on the ocean, but in reverse, I have also been in some really, really, really bad storms. I will just say you can Google my name and find me in the news from um, a, a cruise that I was on. I won't state the name of the people. I'm not trying to bash them because I've cruised with them a lot of times afterwards, but it was what we experienced on the water was pretty crazy stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
so I think having healthy fear, respect, and but still being able to relax and know that um, it is beautiful. So there's some polar thinking when it comes to the ocean. So
It's actually a real, yeah, I love the way that you described it in that in its polarity. And I've found over the years that grief, my grief, has been, um, it's been such a great analogy for my grief and understanding, yeah, how it can change and how it can evolve and move and shift its shape and you know, be totally different from one day to the next. And waves themselves, but also just the ocean in general, and how unpredictable it can be, and how
mm,
so many times you need to learn how to go with the flow, roll with what you're given, and learn how to ride as well. Learn how to work with when the waves are big or when they're crashing and they're smashing you in the face and you're feeling really defeated and you either keep going or sometimes you can go, you know what? I'm just going to flip around and ride on into shore on my belly because this is just too much for me today. So yeah, I found that surfing's been a really beautiful, like emotional processing of the grief as well as such a physical therapy. Um, yeah, it's great exercise and it's really good. It creates beautiful mental space as well, and that connection to the water, as we'll probably get into, is really powerful and important for me as well. So yeah, we're definitely not the only ones that feel it. I'm sure many people can relate to this polarity of water and the ocean. It's
yeah.
beautiful and terrifying at the same time sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And if you go way, way, way back, like this is episode 115, I believe. And if you go way back, probably Uh, golly, I don't know. Probably episode 4 or 5. Like I did just one little clip where I was reading something called The Shipwreck, and it's a phenomenal writing. There was a guy on Reddit who wrote this. It was an older man talking about how grief is a lot like a shipwreck, and when you think about, like you stated, the waves of grief sometimes just take us over, but then there's certain times where you can kind of ride the wave um and it does, I think, also lead into exciting places, learning that I can do things that I didn't think I could do before because I was forced into it, you know. So there's some uncomfortable things for sure, but I believe grief does force us into places where we find we're way more capable at doing certain things that we never thought that we could do before.
Absolutely, absolutely, full of
Well,
surprises.
yeah, yeah. And you know, and sometimes it brings us full circle too, right? We've talked about that, and I hope you kind of bring in a little bit of that. But let's talk a little more about Tahiti and your relationship. So maybe introduce the listeners a little bit to the man that kind of stole your heart.
Yeah. So his name is Kahipo, and Kahipo, if I'm not wrong, it means sweetheart in Tahitian, which he absolutely was an absolute sweetheart. And as I mentioned already, he was this real chilled, laid back surfer guy. very, very calm, friendly, relaxed energy, and sprinkled with just enough ambition and adventure to really kind of spark my attention and for me to relate to as well. And yeah, he wanted to bring joy to whoever came across his path and was really generous, had a really incredible relationship with his sisters and family, parents, and he was one of those people that everybody had something great to say about him. It just,
Mm.
yeah, it wasn't one of those, oh yeah, I know that guy. It was like, oh yeah, Gabe, oh my bro, like such a legend. And everybody was just singing his praises. Um, and yeah, and that started with him, but also like his family was very loved on the island. I mean, Tahiti's pretty small, so it doesn't take long for everybody to know everybody. And um, yeah, I think such a testimony to his life was even to the point of his funeral causing a traffic jam outside.
Mm.
So the very first service out of many, many services that we had to celebrate his life. Um, but Tahiti is basically this big volcanic island, and because of the topography, there's just one road that goes all the way around the island either way. And so the church was on the beach side of the road, and there was just this massive traffic jam outside the church on the
Mm.
day, and there were just hundreds and hundreds of people there, like, pouring out of the church. Um, which, yeah, it's beautiful. It just goes to show how loved he was, and yeah, how his energy just was captivating for everybody, and of course, especially for me. And I felt so privileged that somebody so wonderful chose to love me and chose me as
Mm.
well. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, I just have so many beautiful memories of him singing, and he was a real hopeless romantic and used to just, bust out these really like romantic songs in these moments that were almost to the point of cringe, but it was just so beautiful that I couldn't cringe. And usually there'd be some kind of little, I don't know, cheekiness or dance thrown in, and um, just anything to make me smile.
Yeah. And you spoke of his name meaning sweetheart, and I totally believe that names carry this symbolic meaning and even long after death. And it's the way you speak about him, um, it really does sound like he was a sweetheart and that he did love you a lot. So, if I may, and if you want me to steer away, that's fine. But it was very sudden that he left your life, right?
Yeah, it was very unexpected. And we don't need to steer away. I'm okay to talk about it. And well, the day of the accident, he was working as a boat captain, and I thankfully wasn't at work that day. I had dropped him off in the morning. We were sharing a car at the time, and I dropped him at work and drove home. And the plan was for me to pick him up in the afternoon. And yeah, in the end, during the day, I was feeling a bit off, and I didn't really know why. I thought I just hadn't done, any exercise or gone for a run. So it got towards the time when I was meant to pick him up, and um, I said to my housemate, like, "Oh, I really want to go, but I don't really have time." And my housemate offered to go and pick him up um, because he was going free diving with a couple of friends, and Kahipo had said that he wanted to also go free diving with them sometime. So he was like, "Oh, I'll go pick him up and see if he wants to come with us." And that gave me an opportunity to go for a swim, snorkel with my other housemate. And yeah, my housemate got to his workplace, and it was the very end of the day, 4 p.m. He was packing up the boat, and um, longer story short, as he was putting the boat away at the end of the day, he had to jump from the boat to the jetty once it was like enough space so that it wouldn't bang overnight. And just on that little jump, he slipped and bumped his head, fell in the water unconscious. And yeah, I was underwater for about 10 minutes before anyone retrieved him.
Mm.
Somebody saw it happen, but they saw it from quite a while away. It was kind of like in this little bay lagoon. And somebody saw it from a distance, and the time it took for them to walk over and say to someone, "Oh, hey, I saw someone fall in the water. Do you want to maybe go check?" And then for somebody to go out and realize that he wasn't to be seen and that he was on the bottom of the ocean, and then to like dive down and find him. Normally, Tahiti is the most crystal clear, like in the postcards, turquoise, clear water. But it had been raining a lot the weekend
Mm.
before. And so the water was a little bit murky. And so, yeah, they had to kind of like dive around to find him. It was only in 2 or 3 meters of water, where the boat sat at the end of the day. But yeah, they pulled him out and tried to revive him a couple of times. And like everything was kind of working. So like his heart came back online and they revived him 2 or 3 times. But yeah, by the time he got to the hospital and they kind of stabilized him as much as they could, yeah, he was like intubated and on a ventilator. Um, and that afternoon and night, they were doing a bunch of tests to check for his brain activity. And yeah, by the morning, they had pronounced him brain dead. So it was just a little too long that oxygen hadn't gotten to his brain, even though everything else kind of wanted to be working. The brain wasn't sending the signals to tell everything to work, so it just wasn't gonna happen to save him. And so, yeah, his family made the decision to turn off the machines and um, and also not waste any time because they wanted to donate his organs. So yeah, he went
Mm.
by within 24 hours between 4 p.m. when the accident happened. The next morning, he was pronounced brain dead, and then they gave us the day to kind of just be with him and say goodbye. And then, at, yeah, in the afternoon, the next day, they just turned everything off and rolled him away.
Mm. Yeah, I
So
I
yeah, it was
know.
very sudden and quick, 24 hours. And
Yeah, how long had you been in Tahiti at that point?
at that point, I'd been there about a little over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that have a misconception about grief and it being um, somewhat proportional to time. What do you think what would you want people to understand about love and grief and how sometimes when you meet the right person, it's as if you've been with them for a lifetime anyway. And um, I wouldn't want anyone to discount your grief or your love, right? What do you think you would state?
That's a great question. And so often I feel like I get this feeling that my grief isn't worthy because it was really short and intense and I didn't have a lot of time with him. And, some people lose their husbands after or wives after 20, 30 years and they have kids and this whole life that they've built together. And yeah, I think for me, I had a few beautiful months and it was so short. Um, but yeah, I'm sure that there are some people out there that can relate to sometimes a love of 4 days can be as strong and powerful and sure and clear as a relationship of 4 years. Um, and this for me was just such such a big, clear yes, and such a clear love, and such a strong clarity and sureness that
Mm.
yes, that
Yeah.
yes, this is it. And yeah, I do still discount or feel like I should be discounting my grief because it was so short. And sometimes I feel like I'm being judged for overreacting or holding on so tightly to something that I could just let go, or people think that I could or should just let go of. And yeah, I think love is love.
Yeah.
And I think since trying to recover and even like dating and seeing other people or having other relationships, I'm always going around in these circles like, oh, is this my person? Is it the trauma? Is it the grief? Is it, why can't I settle into something again? And sometimes I ask people that are in really long term, really happy, really healthy relationships, like, how did you know? How did you know that this is it? And so often the answer is, I just knew. I just knew. I just knew that this is my person. And it was, every relationship is going to have challenges and life is hard and love is hard. But you just know that it's worth it. And that just knowing is what I had there. And it was such a deep and beautiful, strong love. And also quite, I wouldn't necessarily use the word intense, but I think it was more just the clarity
Mm.
of it being so real and so right for both of us mutually, that I just had no doubt in my mind. Almost to the point of sometimes thinking to myself, like, how could this even be real? Like, I
Mm.
remember we used to actually stay to, even to the point of our first kiss, we pulled away from each other and just looked at each other and we're like, c'est pas possible. Like, this is not possible. What is this? We couldn't
Mm.
believe it, the way that it felt. And well, all of that to say, I guess I haven't really given much of a message, but I guess yeah, the message maybe is love, and when you know, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
time is not, I mean, time is a construction that we have put around things to better understand them and to better describe them, but it's just a description or a container. It's not the
Yes.
essence of what we're living.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And when people talk about the length of grieving, that if someone does move on, they're like, "Wow, how could they move on? It's only been a year." Or if they've been, I'll say, stuck in grief for 10 years, why have they not moved on? Right? So I think it's humans who put parameters on certain things and decide what's good and what's not good. And a lot of it's based on what I feel, not what's good for you. It may be, uh, we may have completely different ideas on what healing looks like, on what love looks like. And I think we all try to dictate it for everybody else whenever we should just step back and state, if that's what's good for you, I'm going to support you. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just second that so much. I second that so much. And I think so often when we're talking about grief and connecting with others, one of the biggest challenges for me is what to share with people and how much, because I'm so conscious of how they might feel or how they might receive it or how uncomfortable they might be listening to all of these things. I'm really comfortable talking about it. Of course, yeah, sometimes I might get emotional, I might cry, things might come up, things might get stirred, but most of the time it's the other receiving, asking person or non-asking person maybe, that is, yeah, receiving the information that could feel really, really uncomfortable. And it does happen a lot that people will sometimes project their own experiences, their own fears, their own perceptions, their own rules, their own ideas of how grief should be and whether or not we should be suffering, how we should be moving on or how we shouldn't be moving on. And people are so quick to judge and decide, like you said, oh, it's only been a year, how can you move on? And other people might say like, oh, come on, it's been a year already, get over it. And
Mm,
everybody's got such different ideas. Um, and yeah, I even feel when I originally reached out that it was strange for me to want to talk about it so much. It's been nearly 9 years. And yeah, sometimes I just feel like something can hit me and I'm back at square one and it feels like it happened yesterday.
mm.
And grief is just like that. It can really just smack you in the face and knock you down and just get back up and find your feet again and sometimes surrender to it and sometimes, like we said, figure out how to walk and ride it and keep moving forward and sometimes going back to move forward as well.
Yeah. We've talked often in this episode about polarization. And one of the things that I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, you've got Tahiti, and the way that you describe it, it's a beautiful place, but it's also a place of isolation. And I'm wondering how those two concepts may have played into your grief, especially in the early days when you were still there. And also, maybe tell me, like, at what point did you leave Tahiti?
Mm. So the accident happened on the 20th, well, it was the 20th accident. The 21st of February was the next day when they turned off the machines. And I stayed until it was the end of April. So, yeah, I stayed a couple of months afterwards. And it was true that in that time after the accident, and even before being so far away from home, yeah, sometimes you can feel really isolated on the island, but I think everybody's a bit in the isolation together, so there's
Mm.
kind of this connected community
Community.
feel
Yeah.
about it as well. Um, but in terms of, yeah, isolation from, I guess, from my family or the people that I know are closest to me and could accept and love me in whatever state that I am, which, was perhaps not the most wonderful, brightest version of myself after the accident. And that was something really challenging to navigate, especially because we were so new in our relationship. I'd met his parents and his family. We'd spent a bit of time together, but it's really strange because the most that they've known of me is my grieving self,
Mm.
of like the Natalie after when Gahipo was no longer there. And it makes me feel quite insecure that they knew me like this. And I think there's, of course, this kind of trust that their son fell in love with somebody wonderful, and they trust that. But I guess in terms of their personal experience, they certainly haven't seen the best version of me, and I have a lot of self-judgment and a lot of insecurity around that as well. And
Mm.
almost as like an honor to him, I would love to share my best self with them, but it was just so hard navigating that after the accident. And I think, like going home back to Australia was really a really hard decision to make because I was kind of severing and leaving this life behind, and I was leaving behind a lot of a lot of the grief, a lot of the trauma, a lot of the difficult times, but I was also leaving behind so many dreams and so many beautiful things that had drawn me there and
Mm.
I that I'd imagined all the directions I'd imagined my life going, having this relationship and that life there. Um, and yeah, coming back to Australia was quite the reality check because, well, not reality check. It was just a slap in the face, actually. It was all
Mm.
about getting help and getting therapy, and that was absolutely helpful. But at the same time, I felt really out of place and like I wasn't really meant to be there. I was there because of what happened, not necessarily like, oh yeah, let's go home. I want to go back to Australia. And um, not that there's anything wrong with Australia, but I was just in this period of my life where I was traveling and moving and exploring the world, and um, it all kind of came crashing down a little bit. So talking about those polarity of that polarity of the wonder and the isolation. Yeah, it felt isolating, but I almost felt more isolated coming back to Australia.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, more isolated coming back to Australia where nobody knew him, nobody knew our story, nobody knew my life there. And of course, I had all of the support of my family and friends. But yeah, the fact that they weren't really involved in everything. In saying that, my dad and my sister came straight over when the accident happened, and they lived a period of that with me, and that
Mm.
I am so, so, so grateful for, and I can't imagine having lived that time without them there. And yeah, my 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 sister and my dad were both just such rocks and such comforts during that time as well.
Wow. I want
Yeah.
to look at something else that may be a little bit polarized in your thinking. And you've told me about grief and certainly we can see things that you've lost. You've lost uh, a man that you love. You've lost some dreams and some future thought processes and things, a pathway that um, really you just had started carving. But what are some things because of the loss that you've actually gained from life?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good one. What are some things that I've gained from the loss? I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I have been on a bit of a roller coaster in the last couple of years. And as I said, I've always had this real like adventure seeking heart. And I think when that happened, when the accident happened, I came back to Australia and was just all about kind of just getting a bit more stability and wellness back. And uh, it's really hard to imagine how that time would have been different had the accident not happened. Um, but I certainly got to know a part of myself that I really, really loved and that was really lit up coming back to Australia and working on the Great Barrier Reef. I had a lot of opportunities working as a guide and dive instructor. And I mean, the fact that I had all of my attention to put into that, I feel as though I created so many beautiful things and I was able to give so much and share so much and educate and inspire people. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. And I do ask myself a lot of questions because I find that a lot of the times, like people put so much energy and love and focus into, relationships or jobs or whatever they choose to put their energy into. And I think that, yeah, being alone for that time and just focusing on myself and the things that made me feel good and better, um, I was able to put a lot of my energy into creating some really beautiful things. And I'm super grateful for that. And they're things that are kind of legacy type things. I don't know if legacy is too big of a word, but things that live on, whether or not you're still doing them or not. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and I think that's something that it's funny that you asked like what did I gain, but my gain was something that I gave, um,
mm, mm,
which I absolutely love because it's really fulfilling and makes me feel really, really, really full. Um, and I mean, other than that, I guess it just always brings you back to remembering how fragile and precious life is and how quickly it can just go from one day to the next. And
Yeah.
especially with this trip that I'm doing now, I was like recently in a bit of a just stale part of my life where I was so focused on creating structure and stability and safety for myself that
Mm.
I was I felt like my light was just dimming, and I had all of these wonderful things that society would define as successes. I had really wonderful friends and a community and this like, great job and a house and a car and all of the things. And I was just feeling so empty. And I went back to Tahiti last September, October, and it was really just a bit of a slap in the face of to remind me how I was living before and how I have lived and how much I want and need to be there again. Not necessarily physically there in Tahiti, but I needed to get my sparkle, my shine back.
Mm.
Um, that had kind of dimmed in this almost desperate effort to create safety and stability and be better and get past and heal. Um, and yeah, it is such this that it's another polarity actually of how much you focus on something versus how much you let go. And this is something I'm always juggling with and playing with my grief as well, is like how much attention do I give it and how much do I just, you know, charge forward, don't look back, eyes on the horizon and keep walking forward versus, oh, and like, what if I talk about it a little bit? Or what if I do this therapy? Or what if I do this? Or what if I do that? And it's such a delicate balance of um, like revisiting enough to keep stepping forward without falling really far back or being stuck in it. And I do find that I also self-judge a lot around that as well and feel very much so that other people judge about where I should be or how well I should be doing or whether or not I should do this therapy or whether or not I shouldn't do the therapy or oh come on, it's been 9 years, get over it. Like how can you still be, you know, that far back there and you've got to move on and yeah, some people can say some really unhelpful things sometimes. And actually like something that's helpful for one person can be totally not helpful for another. And it's so hard to know what to say. And a lot of times it will result in people not saying anything.
Mm.
Um, but I think one of the best things, at least for me, and like I said, it's different for everybody, but if you don't know what to say, a lot of the times it's enough just to say, I don't know what to say,
Yeah.
but I'm here with you and I can sit with you in it and listen. Um, and yeah, if I say something that's not helpful, you can let me know, or I'm really sorry. Or it is really, it's a really challenging place to be as a close or even not close support person for someone that's grieving because everybody experiences it so differently. And there are so many constructs and judgments and
Mm.
yeah, people's own experiences, like we were saying before, that come into it. It can be really challenging.
Yeah. So for someone listening that may have lost someone suddenly or even perhaps early on in a relationship, what would you want them to know that no one told you?
That the pain is so valid.
Mm.
The pain is so valid. It is so valid. And I think one of the most beautiful things that someone shared with me really early on is that the depth and the intensity of the pain is often a reflection of the depth and the intensity of the love that you had.
Yeah.
And that grief grief is love with nowhere to go. So you're pouring all of this love into something before, and now the person is just gone. And I think one of the most beautiful things anybody can do is redirect that love back to yourself.
Yes.
Um, and and do the best possible um, effort that you can to take care of yourself. And it is so hard to care about anything, and especially to care about yourself that early on. So yeah, I would say that yeah, the love is valid, the pain is valid. They're one and the same. And that's why it hurts so, so, so much. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just try not to take things that people say too much to heart, because there can be some really unhelpful things that come in. Something that I didn't really do, I think, enough at the beginning was connecting with other people who'd shared the same experiences. So if somebody's early on and they've found this podcast, kudos to them. And I hope that it's really helpful. And yeah, reach out and chat about it, knowing that maybe not everybody will want to or be ready, depending on where they're at. But yeah, find what works for you and don't let anybody else tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. Just like write it out. There are going to be times when you feel like it's not even possible to keep going, and then you'll get these little glimmers of hope, um and then just when you think that everything's good and you're like, yeah, I've got this, I'm finally feeling like I'm healing it and I'm integrating it and like accepting, it's just like, nah. Then something will come and smack you. So you don't always want to be sitting there waiting for the smack, but um, don't be hard on yourself if the smack comes, because
Yeah.
it's a roller coaster. It's an absolute roller coaster. And all this stuff about a linear process is absolute
Garbage.
garbage.
Yeah.
Um, it is an absolute like crazy, unhappy baby on a roller coaster. Like you just don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the one thing that I can see in your life is that you have really made some meaning out of the life of Kahipo and your story with him. And I'm certain that that has shaped you into the person that you are today and the person that you're becoming. Um, but I'm curious, what do you want people to say about you whenever you're gone?
Oh, oh my goodness, this is so deep. Uh, wow. What would I like people to say about me when I'm gone? First of all, I would love to get to the point where I don't care.
Yeah.
But I would love also to leave something really positive. So I do care. And I try every day, all the time, to keep improving myself and learning about myself and learning about how to relate and how to connect with people. And I would love for people to remember me as somebody who can be really, really strong in the face of challenges, and also who's just a shining light
Hmm.
in other people's lives. And I mean, just the way that Gahipa was a chilled, lovable sweetheart. Um, I would also love for people to remember me as this, yeah, bright, bubbly, shining light that brings joy um, and is really human as well, because we can't be just happy, bubbly, perfect, smiling humans all the time. And I think that's a huge thing that my grief journey has been teaching me as well, is that we have to work with the spectrum, and the polarities that life gives us. We can't always be cheery, happy all the time. And whenever we try and block out those uncomfortable, heavier emotions, they just build and bubble up, and eventually they're going to explode, or they're going to come out as irritability or nastiness or something that's not very beautiful. And something that a lot of my pain and struggles have taught me is how to sit. I've been learning how to sit with them, how to understand how they can cause those behaviors, and how to work out a way to recognize and catch it before it gets to that behavior so that it can be turned into something beautiful. And I think it's also been a really great tool to connect with other people who might be struggling or suffering. And yeah, I hope that people remember my joy, but also my humanness.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I completely agree with you on that. And the older I get, the more I enjoy being human. And that sounds so weird, but it's like I think I've started to love my flaws, the thing, even the things where I feel like I dropped the ball in life, that it is part of the human experience, and I'm okay with that. And
mm,
I don't know if you have a word for the year, but I'm gonna give you a word for the year, maybe to guide you. And it was I started picking a word of the year about 7 years ago, and my first word of the year was beacon. And I'm like, I don't know where that came from. It just kind of came on to me, and that was kind of my word for the year. And it was so amazing. Like, people would just come up and be like, "Oh, you're such a beacon of light." I'm like, "That's my word." And then, I would see all these lighthouses, and of course, it's got the whole nautical theme behind it. And you're part nautical in in your nature anyway. But I really do think that your story will help many. And I think it's a story that needs to be told. That certainly the life of Kahipo, but also the story of your love, the story of your resilience, the never quit, the I still have a future. That's what encourages people in grief, to see other people who um, is not completely consumed with grief. That someone that says, yes, this still hurts 9 years later, but my life still has meaning. His life still has meaning, and I'm here to work it out until I take my last breath. So I've been very honored to be a part of just listening and witnessing your story, and I'm certain that there'll be many people who find a lot of fruit from just being with us during this podcast, and hearing your life. So I really thank you, and I certainly want to leave you with any final thoughts that you have for listeners. But it truly has been
yeah,
an honor.
thank you, Brad. It's been so wonderful. And a final thought that came up just as you're speaking now is, yeah, it's nearly been 9 years for me. And honestly, being able to talk about it and honor him and celebrate him and also reflect on everything, it's just such an incredible opportunity. And it is so rare that I can sit down for an hour and talk about it. And like we were saying before, a lot of people can feel really uncomfortable. So even for listeners, whether they're grieving or not grieving, I think one of the most beautiful gifts that you can give to somebody who's grieving is the opportunity to talk about it, ask them what their name was, ask them what they were like, let
Mm,
them talk about it. It keeps their memory alive, and it's a beautiful opportunity and really healing. And the more comfortable you can get with talking about it, the more you're processing. And yeah, I think it's just one of the greatest gifts that anyone can give to somebody who's lost anyone, someone, even a pet, or
yeah.
they're grieving. Ask them what were their name, what were they like, what did you love about them, and yeah, if you're comfortable enough to sit through, maybe, yeah, maybe they're going to cry, maybe they're going to feel a lot of things, but it's beautiful and it's powerful and it's necessary, I think.
Mm,
And if they don't want to talk about it, then they can let you know that they don't want to talk about it. But at least coming from my perspective, yeah, whenever given the opportunity, if I had a friend that wanted to sit down for an hour and listen to me talk about Kahipo, I would go for it. I would
Yeah.
take that opportunity. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I hope you share this broadcast with many. I really think everybody will love this episode, and certainly your heart shines through in your love for him. So, thank you again for sharing your story with us.
Thank you again so much too, Brad. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And listeners, I will have Natalie's information. I'll have her email and Instagram in the show description. So if you want to reach out and if her story has really touched you, certainly reach out to her, and she's more than willing to speak further. And anyway, thanks for tuning in for another episode, and we will catch you on the next one. Have a great day, everyone.